betting weekly because we win. That is our motto. Sometimes we win, sometimes we don't win. Don't give us the bird, don't give us your stink eye. We try our best and we're successful. Come watch our show. That River sponsor. It's time to start. Enjoy the show.
Oh, welcome everyone to Betting Weekly Live. It's Tuesday, the 22nd of April. You're with Steve Wyss, and I'm delighted to have Doug Kezirian back on the show. It's been several weeks since we've last done a show together. Doug, I hope you've been keeping well.
I have. Thanks, Steve. Good to be with you as well. It's always an exciting time of year. You know, there's in the States here, it's an age-old discussion. Which is the best part of the year for the sports calendar? Is it the fall when you have football going on, or is it kind of right now when you have the NFL draft, you have the playoffs in both the NBA and NHL. We just had the Masters, baseball, a lot of exciting sports, and that means a lot of exciting events to bet on.
That's a great question, actually. What is the best time of the year for sports fans in general across the globe, actually? Put it in chat. What's your favourite time? I'll have to have a good think about that, and I'll come up with an answer before the end of the show. But welcome into anyone who is joining us live or indeed on demand. Byron Murrill, good to see you. Rick Haley, Diski, Ming Chung as well. Duncan, Ray, and Daniel Lucani as well. And several commenting about yesterday's live show. Got to tip my hat to Lewis Jones. He was in sensational form. He went a complete clean sweep in that Tottenham game. I managed to contribute with a couple of winners as well. It was a very good day on Betting Weekly Live, that's for sure. And Tribe of Gad, yeah, that was quite a bit of a shocking blowout, really, from Bodo Glimt in the Norwegian game yesterday. I tell you what, I thought they were going to win 4 or 5-0, and then somehow they conceded a penalty and ended up drawing. It was a very strange game. Really surprised they dropped points yesterday. Anyone who backed them on the money line, I think, can feel a little bit unlucky. But welcome Ian Messina as well, Duncan Evans, Benjamin Chukwar as well, and Bastian Costa. We've got Doug on the show, so we're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. We're also going to be looking at the NFL draft because there's some good bets you can get on that. The draft, of course, coming up very, very soon this week. We've got soccer today and a really big game that I'm going to have to start off the show with. And it is in the Premier League. It's Manchester City against Aston Villa. This match has been played this week because these sides are involved in the FA Cup semi-finals at the weekend. So that's something to consider. You've got to remember an FA Cup semi-final at Wembley Stadium in London is quite a big thing. But Manchester City favourites here, -121. Aston Villa +290, and the ties at +300. And I suspect there's going to be a lot of different opinions on this game about which direction people want to go in. I know we've got a lot of Villa fans that come in chat here, and I think Villa won't lose this game. I don't know what a lot of these fans think. The incredible thing, I mean, Manchester City have got a massive reputation, obviously, in the last 10 years. They've had the best squads, the best players. But right now, I think Villa have more depth. They can rotate the squad more. They can bring in Marcus Rashford to start up front if they want here and hit them on the pace, on the break. And I'm actually a little bit surprised that Manchester City are minus money in this game. I couldn't go near them here. So if I was taking anything on the money lines, it would be on the draw double chance for Aston Villa. But I think over 3 Asian goals is the way to go here. Myself, I had a good look at this game, and I've come up with that one bet at -124 over 3 Asian goals. So 3 goals, you're getting your full push here. I think Aston Villa have got goals in them, and they can hurt this Manchester City defence, which has been pretty poor all season, really. Certainly gettable. Manchester City are without Erling Haaland still. But we do know that Marmoush has been one of the best signings of the season since he came in January. And, both teams to score yes is very likely here. I did look at the parlay. Both teams score yes and over 2.5 goals, but it's only -175. So I think the over 3 Asian goals is a good bet on here as well. Quite a few in the comments like in Villa as well. Jake Albright has gone small on Villa. 2-2 draw, says Duncan Evans. That wouldn't surprise me either. I think it'd be a good game. I think it'd be a really good game to watch. And Nish also is liking that Asian 3 over goals option as well. Put it in the chat here if you've got any player props and stuff. I did have a look. The lineups might be difficult to predict, especially for Aston Villa. And before we move on, just some house specials in this game. Manchester City to score in both halves and win, plus 190. That's if you do like Manchester City. And in terms of the splits here, 91% of the money on the money line is on City. 86% of the over-under money is on the over. And an interesting stat producer Troy gave me here. Man City's won its last 14 straight Premier League home games against Villa. So if you're going on the head-to-heads, then you'll be betting on Aston Villa, on Manchester City. I do think there's a good chance that streak could end in this match. Grazza, I did look at your comment on X today about the Barca game. I'm going to come to that a bit later. I'm not really sure what the issue is there, but good game to watch in the Premier League, either pre-match betting or in play. I think the over 3 Asian goals is the way to go. So, Doug, NBA playoffs, my man. Who you got to win these playoffs? The whole thing. Who's your outright overall pick? Would you say at this state in time?
I have the Boston Celtics to defend their title. I'm not betting it because I think the Thunder are going to be really, really tough. And where I'm not even convinced 100%, of course, that Boston will get to the finals. I think most people also sort of believe in the Cleveland Cavaliers a little bit. I'm not dismissing them just because they haven't been there. That's sort of a common take. But, it's funny. Up until a few years ago, the NBA was the most predictable of all the sports. It's because it's not March Madness when it's single elimination bracket. It's best of 7 series. So as we all know, the larger the sample size, the more predictable an outcome is, right? If you flip a coin 4 times, you're likely to get 2 heads, 2 tails, but you could easily get 75% heads or something like that. Whereas if you flipped it 250 times, you're likely to get 50%, right? So the concept is the NBA, and this the volume of possessions, right? 100 possessions in a game, best of 7. It's just likely that it's going to be predictable. But up the starting with the year, the Nuggets won. Based on the futures market, the favorite was like minus. The favorite up until then was always like plus 200 or so or less. The Warriors, when they had Kevin Durant, was minus 110, things like that. But now we have a wide open, based on the futures market, we have a much more competitive landscape, at least at the top of the NBA. And therefore, I think it's just less predictable and with player movement, things like that. So I'm really excited for these playoffs, just how competitive everything is.
There was a big bet on the sportsbook here yesterday, $31,000 on the Knicks -5 against the Pistons at -147. Unfortunately, that was a loser. Hope that wasn't your money, Doug.
No.
But that was the biggest basketball play. There was a big bet on the soccer yesterday. Real Betis on the in the Spanish La Liga, halftime moneyline live against Girona, $33,000. It did win at -312. And there was also a big bet in the Championship, Sheffield United on the plus half Asian handicap, $20,000 against Burnley. That was a loser as Burnley got promoted to the Premier League. Where was I? Yes, on the futures market for this for the NBA playoffs, OKC Thunder plus 150, Boston Celtics plus 175, Cavaliers plus 500. We're going to talk about the 3 matches that we've got on today. You're going to break down these games. I know you've said to me you're not massive on anything in particular here, but we can maybe give some angles to the viewers and listeners to get at. Before we go into that, Doug, we've got 2 house specials with Bet Rivers. I'm going to pick your brains here. This is on the matches today. Any NBA player to score 45 or more points tonight, plus 150, and any NBA team to win by 26 or more points tonight at plus 120. Would either of those float your boat?
I love these types of offerings because you got action on all the games and it's exciting and enticing. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like I said, action on all these games. I don't think we're going to get the 40-something points. I do think we can see a team win by, 24 more points? I think we can see that.
26-point winner, 45 points for any player or more.
So I wouldn't do the individual player. I would strongly consider. So not quite ready to pull the trigger on the blowout just because garbage time teams come back. But that would be the only one I would consider. How about that?
Yeah. I'm with you. These house specials, if I always say, if you like them and and you're going to bet that, you may as well take up the offer. If it's above your estimations, then do it. If you don't like them, don't go anywhere near them. It's not for you. There's so many ways you can play stuff. Anyway, let's get on to these games then. Where shall we start? Bucks at Pacers here, -4.5 on the spread. And we've got a points total at 229.5. This is really even split. 51% of the money is on the Bucks, so proper 50-50. In terms of the spread, though, we've got 82% of the money on the Bucks for this one. Doug, how do you break down this match?
So this is interesting, and we're getting live breaking news here on the show. So it's just hitting the Twitter sphere, if you will, that Damian Lillard is in fact going to play tonight for Game 2 between the Bucks and Pacers. He's been out over a month, had a vein issue in his leg, I believe, and he was upgraded to questionable the last day or so. So it was anticipated he would play, but now it looks like he's telling reporters he will in fact play. So it's off the board right now at Bet Rivers, but it should be reposted at 4, maybe even 3.5. I like the Pacers here. Look, I think there's going to be a transition period for Lillard. Also, it doesn't mean, this is sort of silly talk, but it's really important to, when I try to argue with friends or whatever, I try to start with the extreme and then make people realize. So when Damian Lillard's coming back from injury, it doesn't mean they're going to have a sixth starter, right? Like they have to remove a player as well. So the increase in quality of play, there's going to be an adjustment period because he's been out over a month. The team was in some sort of rhythm, although they did not play well in Game 1. And now the offense is going to run through Lillard because he's a point guard, whereas before it was essentially running through Giannis. And there's still going to be some deference that players have to give, those role players. And there's just going to be some form of an adjustment. Now, in the NBA, there is an age-old theory called the zigzag theory. And it's been misused often, such as teams thinking just because a team lost the previous game, you got to back them the next game, and goes back and forth, back and forth. That's not really the true zigzag theory. It's a little technical, but you should really only bet on the playoff team that is either at home or favored coming off a loss. So that does not apply at all to Milwaukee and Indiana because the Pacers won Game 1 and they're both at home and favored here in Game 2. But last night with the Clippers, it applied for sure because they were on the road, but they were favored. So they were off a Game 1 loss. So I don't think Milwaukee's the automatic bounce back here. People like to think of the bounce back situation in playoffs and the addition of Lillard, but I'm on the Pacers. Once this line gets reposted, and I think it's going to be 3.5 range, I'd be inclined to bet the Pacers. I think they're the better team. I think what Indiana did in Game 1 in terms of defending Giannis was pretty noticeable. They're going to let him get all his points and attack the rim. He's going to miss free throws if they foul him and they have a lot of bodies to throw at him. He's going to miss shots at the rim that are contested with the other bigs. And what it does is also kind of neutralizes the three-point threat of all the surrounding sharpshooters that Milwaukee has. I think the Pacers are better coached. So if I had to play a game tonight of the 3, I would bet the Pacers. It's going to be 4 or 3.5 now that we know the Lillard status.
Yeah, interesting stuff there. Zigzag theory. I like it. This is a completely different topic, but I once read if you're getting chased by a crocodile or an alligator, you should running a zigzag to confuse them. I don't know how true that is or not. Maybe someone might know that.
They don't really have knee joints where they can pivot, right? They only go straight. They go in straight lines.
Yeah, so confuse them by going the zigzag. I don't ever want to be in that situation. But you never know, do you? You might be. It might happen to anyone at any point. This is a bit crazy. Yeah, Grizzlies then. Grizzlies at OKC Thunder here. This is the biggest spread on this card, -14.5 here. So anyone looking at that house special earlier, this might be the best chance if you're going to get a team to win by 26 or more. I mean, this is a big number to cover in a playoff game, Doug. Do you see that happening? OKC should win the game, I suppose, but it's nearly 15 points. Well, it is 15 points they've got to cover.
So a couple factors in play here. As we all know, the Thunder dominated game one by 50, okay, in the range of 50 points. Now, that was a horrendous spot for Memphis. They were off emotional wins in the play-in tournament. So they had a game that came down to the wire against the Warriors, and then Friday night, they had an emotional win. And then, 36 hours later, they're playing the Thunder on the road against a team that was eliminated early from the playoffs and certainly hungry. The spot was terrible and blowout. I talked to a sharp odds maker yesterday, and he likes Memphis. He said that he loves betting on teams that are embarrassed. And I agree with the thought process for sure. It's, you don't reach the NBA or any sport at this level and be a punching bag, right? Once you get your head kicked in like they did in game one, you don't just take it for the next few games and roll over and start your summer vacation. I think they'll come to play, and they do have some talent, right? This is not a completely horrible team. With that being said, the Thunder are the best team in the Western Conference. And so if I were to bet in Memphis, I would look at them first quarter or first half. There's certainly a complacency when you win by 50 points that you sort of start the next game like, all right, we got these guys. Like, I don't think they're going to be buttoned up and eager and hungry and ready to send a message after just winning by 50. They're going to kind of go through the motions. It's just human nature. So if I were to play this, I'd look at maybe Memphis money line first quarter or first to 10, first to 20, because Memphis does have firepower. This is not a team that lacks punch. The problem is OKC's defense is excellent and OKC's offense, but I imagine the Thunder might not be as crisp as they were in game one to start. I think it's a good spot to bet maybe Memphis first to 10, have a little funny things like that.
Yeah, this was the match I do believe on yesterday's live show that was a big play of the weekend, $82,000 winner when they first met, and that particular bettor was cruising by half time, massive blowout win. And you do have to be careful, don't you? Sometimes when in any sport, when there has been a big blowout, there's pride at stake, there's reaction, there's complacency. So I think it's a good point.
It's also human nature, and we talk about this in all sports, to remember what you last saw, like to fixate on that. That's a common mistake or pitfall of a lot of recreational bettors, and you got to be careful. So teams play great in football. You want to play them the next. It doesn't necessarily mean there's a lot that can happen between games. It's comfort level. We all do that in the workplace. It's like, I got an easy work day tomorrow. I'll go have some pints or some beers after work. It's the same. Not that the Thunder are going to come in hungover, but I just think it's the preparation, right? Teams off a loss, usually you want to back. Teams off a win, not so. It's that kind of stuff. So I just think the situational spot we talk about, the situational handicapping, favors Memphis. I just worry that, again, going back to what I was saying earlier about the futures, over the course of 100 possessions, the larger sample size, the truer outcome, and then Thunder can go on these runs, and the Memphis isn't very good. I think their defense stinks, and I like to fade them most of the season. But in this spot, I think the Memphis smaller sample size, you can get sort of the angle of one team hungrier than the other. It's more pronounced in a shorter sample size. That's why I like first quarter or first to 10, first to 20.
59% of the money on the spread is with the Thunder here. 76% of the tickets on that spread. Also on the Thunder, 77% of the over-under money is on the under in this game. So if you're telling that, then that is the direction to go in. Max, you're absolutely right. That's in Planet Earth narrated by Steve Wyss and Meninda. Yes, I do have to be careful around my household. I got chased by a bull in a field last year, actually, when I was going on one of my walks. Don't know where it came. I mean, it was an easy chase. I was well clear of it, but you got to be careful sometimes when you're out there. Doug, I'll say that. You never know what's around the corner. Noah and Peter, I'll be coming back to those games later. 2 La Liga games, and we've got Nantes against PSG. I do have a bet for that Nantes-PSG game, Noah, so stay tuned. Okay, so the next match, the Timberwolves I love that name, the Timberwolves. At the Lakers. Let me just get the graphic up there again. This is a closer one, -5.5 on the spread here. 211 points total, so quite a lowish line in this game. I mean, it looks a difficult one. 56% of the money on the spread with the Timberwolves. It's split 50-50 with the bettors. Is there any? I mean, you've said that all these games are quite tough, but would you lean in either direction?
I would lean to the Lakers, but I think you're got to be careful here. So we talked about the zigzag theory. The zigzag theory certainly favors the Lakers because they are the home team and the favorite, for that matter, off a loss. And so you want to back them. I just think Minnesota is going to play this game with variance, and they shot 50% from three in game one. And the Lakers were certainly not hungry like they should have been, and they were coming in sort of fat and happy, like we like to say. They were reading the press clippings, as they say. Like people were picking them as a chic team, and they didn't come with the right edge and the appropriate amount of intensity. So I think they will in game two. My concern here are two things. One, the T-Wolves are a little awkward and unpredictable. So last year, they won the first two games on the road of their series with Denver. So don't think they're just going to fold because they got what they came for and one road win in LA. Like that was the goal of these teams is to get one of those games, those first two games, and then you can go back home with the series tied and have stolen home court advantage. This Minnesota team's a little bizarre. The second factor, which is I think more applicable, Minnesota had a giant trade last offseason. Okay. They took some time to adjust to life without Karl Anthony Towns and incorporating Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo. And then DiVincenzo missed a lot of time. Gobert missed a lot of time. The pieces are now starting to fit. They're very well coached. I think this team is much better than their playoff seed. Remember last year, starting with the conference finals, when there was only 4 teams left, they were the betting favorite to win the title after they took out Denver in game 7 on the road. So I just would be careful. And it's an excellent team defensively. They have length. Now they lack a little size, so Luka could go off. But the Lakers should be buttoned up, on point, hungrier, and the zigzag theory should prevail. But I would just be a little careful unloading on the Timberwolves. On the Lakers. I think the Timberwolves, and there's, not only do the Lakers have to win, they got to win by a few points here. So I'd be a little uneasy just blindly tailing the zigzag theory. This Timberwolves team's legit. Before the playoffs started, about a week to go in the regular season, my buddy asked, if the Thunder do not win the West, who comes out of the West? And most people would say the Lakers. The Clippers were a chic pick. My immediate response was Minnesota. I think they're that good. They have so many pieces, and they can shoot the three. And Chris Finch is an excellent coach, and he's going to put the right pieces to offset whatever the other team is doing. So I'd be careful laying these points, but I wouldn't grab the points either. I think ultimately the zigzag theory prevails and Lakers cover, but cautiously.
Timberwolves are the favorites to win the series, -134. They lead 1-0.
They are now.
Yeah, I mean, would you agree with those odds? Good price or not?
Yeah, I do. I do. I think the Lakers are good. I really do. And I think the pieces fit. I think they're well coached. We're going to learn a lot about the Lakers tonight. I just would be careful betting. So the Lakers, I mean, look, you got to look at them since the Luka trade, right? They're very different. And then LeBron got hurt. So then it's like, so we don't really know. And then those surrounding pieces, whether it be Gabe Vincent or Dorian Finney-Smith and Rui Hachimura, like these pieces are very important for the Lakers because they can go small and Gobert's not much of an offensive threat. I think the Lakers will be fine in this game. I don't really have an opinion on the series price. I guess you're getting value with the Lakers. So maybe it'd be Lakers or pass on the series price.
Well, it wouldn't be a show with you on, Doug, without an under somewhere.
Okay.
Here we come now. Here we come now. 2 matches that you're going to get stuck into here with the under we've got a Wednesday match and a Thursday game. And the first one we're going to talk about is Rockets and Warriors. The total's 204. And yeah, you like the under here. So I'm interested to see what your angle is on the game as to why.
Okay, so game one over-under was around 212, and it went way under. The first half only had 81 points. And I don't think and the second half went under as well by about 10 or 15 points. So I just think the matchup lends itself to unders. Well, keep in mind, through the first 10 playoff games, we've had 8 unders. All right. The old theory of the offense gets more measured. Okay. So when you're on offense in a playoff game, with the increase of the importance of the game, the stakes are higher. Offense becomes more measured. Defense intensity goes up as well. Referees also tend to swallow the whistle, so they're less likely to put guys on the free throw line, things like that. So free throws were way down this opening weekend, and then both unders hit. And keep in mind, there was an overtime in the Clippers and Nuggets game, and that's in game one, and that still went under, even with overtime. So I'm looking at unders, and to your point, Steve, I like unders in general, but this Rockets-Warriors game is really going to be a rock fight. We knew that going in, and it played out that way. I mean, Houston only had 34 points in the first half in game one. Now, Sengun played great, but everyone else missed shots. The free throws were missed. So I expect Houston to be a little bit more confident. But I think this Golden State offense is super shaky. It's all about Steph Curry, and he's obviously fantastic. But they have guys out there who are not an offensive threat. Draymond Green, Kevon Looney, Gary Payton II. Like, these guys aren't really threats at all. Moses Moody barely. So it's not like the Warriors light it up. And I've always said this about a Warriors playoff series, even when they were much more elite offensively with Klay Thompson and some of these other guys. It's just human nature. The Warriors have a complex offense. Not only do you have to chase Steph Curry around, but they do a lot of slip screens and screen the screener, things like that away from the ball. And it's excellent basketball. But during the regular season, when you play a variety of teams and then you play the Warriors, it's a shock to the system. You're not familiar with their tendencies on offense. You don't know how to anticipate certain cuts. But when you play them consecutively, you're obviously more in tune with what's coming up next on their plays because you're playing the same opponent in a row as opposed to different opponents who have different offenses. So once the series reaches games 3 and 4, or mostly 4, I start really hammering the under in Warriors playoff games. Now, this is game 2 because of Houston's lack of offense and really Golden State's lack of supporting cast around Curry. I'm inclined to play the over. So even with an 8-point adjustment, I'm playing the under in the Warriors game.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great stat. 8 out of 10 of the first playoff games going on the under. This can happen in a lot of sports when the really crunch matches come along, and bettors can get carried away with just betting on the points in whatever sport you're doing. And another under that you like here, this is Nuggets and Clippers, a higher points total here, 214.5. And again, on the underline here for Doug.
And it's because of the way this series is unfolding. Again, the things have not adjusted, right? So 8 of 10. We see this at the beginning of the NFL season, the last couple years here and there, whereas the referee and the officiating, like the league is changing a little bit. Red zone offenses were an issue with the NFL the last few years, and the market doesn't adjust. So I don't think the market is adjusting quickly enough. I think all these series over-unders are going to go down in the next couple of days. Maybe even the books won't adjust in time. So I like the under here. And what's happening is how Denver and the Clippers are defending one another. So with the Nuggets, Jokic is a huge part of the offense. All right. So they run some high pick and rolls around the 3-point line or some high post at the free throw line, at the nail, it's called. And then he could sort of pass to either wing. So they want the posts in the middle of the court as opposed to the block down low. And the Clippers are sending double teams at him and leaving guys like Russell Westbrook open or even Aaron Gordon. And then there's just a domino effect. The Clippers have excellent defenders with Kawhi Leonard. They start Chris Dunn and put him on Jamal Murray. Zubac, I believe, is a finalist for Defensive Player of the Year. So, and then guys like Derrick Jones Jr. is excellent. So Harden is okay defensively. He's better than we think when he tries. So they're an excellent defensive team, and they have Jeff Van Gundy, an experienced coach, who's their defensive coordinator, so to speak. Now, Denver's been playing much better defense as well. And then on top of that, the Clippers are doing a lot of ISO ball when they have the ball. So the fluidity of the offense and their 3-point shooting is not coming with as many open jumpers. In game one, they ran the offense through Harden. Last night, they ran it through Kawhi Leonard. And it's just a more stagnant and, like I said earlier, more measured offensive possessions. And therefore, the unders more likely to come in, because what happens is the math guys, the modelers, shape the market. And they're using regular season data to do projections for the playoffs. And I understand that they're adjusting for the playoffs, though, what I was talking about, better defense, more measured offense, but I don't think they're adjusting enough. And that's why the data is sort of just skewed too much. I think it's a different animal because the starters are playing more minutes. And then I think Jamal Murray's battling like a bug or something. He was wearing long sleeves. He had the chills a little bit. Let's hope he's healthy, but maybe he sits out, and that certainly hurts the under. And he played actually really well in terms of his shooting. He was 4 of 8 from downtown, I believe. So I just think this game is going to be in the low 100s, and I think we can sneak under the total here. And this was the game I mentioned, game one, that this game went in overtime, and they still went under the total.
That's incredible that it went under even with overtime. But yeah, two really strong plays for Doug there in the NBA playoffs, in the Nuggets Clippers game and the Rockets Warriors. So best of luck with your plays in the NBA, Doug. And we've got you on the show this week. So there's a massive event going to be taking place on Thursday, Lambeau Field. And it's the NFL draft. Now, this is something I've watched quite a lot in my life. I don't think I've ever really bet on it too much, but there are some really interesting betting angles. Bet Rivers have got loads of markets priced up here. You can bet on everything from the first overall pick to team props. We've got some plays here that you're going to go with. The favorite to be the first overall pick, Cam Ward. And I was doing a bit of research today, looking for a few sites, and this one made me laugh about other possible picks that could be at number one, and the answer was none. The only way Ward isn't the pick is if he falls down the stairs or is abducted by aliens. So that pretty much sums it up there for the first overall pick. But you are interested in several markets. Let me just put the graphic up right now. Here we go. First cornerback drafted is an interesting market. Will Johnson, Jade Barron. The two favorites here, Trey Amos at 20-1, and then you're looking at 100-1 territory. This looks a close heat, but you like the dog here in the two favorites.
So the NFL draft is really interesting. It's a completely different animal compared to like games we just discussed, right? Compared to a sporting event, which we kind of know the situation. This is all information driven, and I've had some success in the NFL draft the last handful of years. It's sort of a specialty of mine, and that's because it's just an animal unlike anything other. And it's a race for information, but it's also heavily nuanced. And the betting market and odds makers haven't quite devoted the right sort of attention to detail. The market's gotten a lot tighter. They've gotten a lot better, but I think there's really interesting points to this. And I want to start with those NFL, the NFL cornerback. Will Johnson is the favorite. He's the guy out of Michigan. This was once minus $3, and then it got steamed around pick, then back up to $2 and minus 140. Now, he has great size, but he didn't run the 40-yard dash. He has injury history. And this is not a position that we're going to see him in the top 10. So this is about after pick 10, what happens with the cornerbacks. And it's a simple concept, but it's worth mentioning. The farther you get away from pick 1, the more unpredictable it is. So like you mentioned with Cam Ward, unless he gets aliens, he's going to go 1 up, right? But like pick 20, not as predictable, right? Because there's a domino effect.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. There's usually not elite guys, a bunch of them. There's just only a couple at the top. And so the farther you get away from pick 1, the more unpredictable it is. So you have to look at nuance. And that's what's really sort of the difference maker with this type of situation. So his over-under was 11.5. And that's when San Francisco picked. So San Francisco is a team that could use a cornerback at 11, but they could use a few things. Right now, most mock drafts have them going offensive line. And one really well-known podcaster, draft expert said the Niners are not going to take Will Johnson. So that means he moves to 12, which is Dallas, and they're not looking for a corner. And then 13 is the Miami Dolphins, and they do need a corner. A corner would be good. Now, the difference with this is why it's extremely nuanced, and odds makers just move things and they don't really think it through sometimes. And Miami plays mostly man to man, and Johnson's more of a zone corner. So Jahdae Barron out of Texas, he's a better fit for the Dolphins at 13. And I think he's just a better corner because he nuked the combine. Fastest shuttle run, fastest 40. And he can cover like any of the slots, things like that. And people were making excuses early on for Will Johnson that he had a down year, or Michigan just wasn't the national championship team that had a great pass rush and made playing corner for them a little easier. So this past season, when they weren't the national champion, he wasn't as great of a corner. So I think Barron is going to be the first corner off the board. It's plus money. I love his under 18.5 as well. I think he's going to go maybe 13 to Miami, or he slips into the lower teens. But I think under 18.5 is a really good bet for Barron as well. So like I said, it's heavily nuanced. It's driven by information, but it's also driven by understanding the entire landscape of everything and playing the percentages. Again, we're not near the top. So could Miami draft a corner? Yes. Could they not? And if they pass, then what happens? Things like that. So it's about 70%. I think they take Barron, things along those lines. So Will Johnson over 11.5. Now, we're never going to get rich laying minus 305, but I cannot see him going in the top 11 picks. I just cannot. So I would bet over 11.5 Will Johnson minus 305, as we see on the screen. I would bet under 18.5 plus 120 for Barron. And I do think he's a good pick to be the first one overall. So there's a way to obviously win both, right? You have 2 plus 120 bets for Barron. Now, let's say the corners fall to the 20s. Well, you lose the under 18.5 plus 120, but you can still win the first corner at plus 120. So that's why I like chopping it up and splitting it between both of them.
I think it's really fascinating. And of course, you might even get that under 18.5 for Barron. I think that's fascinating because, you might get a trade, a team desperate for a cornerback around 15, 16, if he's not gone yet. They might come in for him there. The Johnson thing, you make a very good point about the 49ers. If he doesn't go there, then it's very, very hard to see him in that top 11. It's really, I think this really, I love this sort of stuff. It's so unique. And there's another bet, top 10 overall. Michael Williams, you like him at plus 150 to be selected in the top 10 overall.
Yeah, my buddy who researched this, he calls Monday of draft week moving day, kind of like Saturday of a golf tournament, because we've really had information come out, and the final mock drafts of a lot of experts comes out tomorrow. But we see a lot of movement yesterday, and Michael Williams, it's probably 50-50 he goes in the top 10. So there's good value. He's a stud out of Georgia. Edge rusher, things like that. And there's 2 Georgia guys in the top 10. Jalen Walker's the other one. So I think a lot of teams that were projected to take other players are now like between the 2 Georgia guys. Now keep in mind, Steve, this was plus 750 Sunday afternoon. Okay. So there's been some
big
movement.
Move for him.
Yesterday morning, it was plus 350 and now it's plus 150, right? I still think there's a little value. It's not a banger or anything like that, but it has to do with some of these other teams sort of cooling. Like when these odds first came out, guys like Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, the quarterback, he was projected to go maybe 3 to the Giants, if not 9 to the Saints. But now that's cooling, and the Saints might go defense now. So what's happening with the top 10 index is we're learning that a lot of guys are falling out, and therefore that means other guys have more opportunity, which is why we've seen a top, it moved from plus 750 to plus 150. And he's very sought after and very enticing to a lot of GMs, and he has the pedigree. And so what's happening with some O linemen is that some guys may be overdrafted, but people that we thought that might go a certain way, like the Raiders, we thought is Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State. But now that may not be the case. Like Pete Carroll, the new coach, may want to go to a beefier D lineman and get Williams. So it's sort of that Venn diagram with each team. It's Williams just has a better shot to go anywhere from 5th to 10th than he did a week ago. So it's not like one team said we're drafting Williams no matter what. It's that he's just sort of his chances have improved for each of those teams, and thus he's more likely to go because he's on the radar of many more teams, and other guys who were on the radar, like Shedeur Sanders, have fallen down a little bit. So that's what's happening. That's why there's line move, but I still think there's value in that regard just because his size may be a better fit than maybe Walker. I love Walker too, but it's about the team's preference. So it's not a huge bet. It's not an amazing bet, but I do think a 50-50 outcome that's plus 150 is worth sprinkling a little bit. I think there's certainly a little bit of value here.
Yeah, Michael Williams, top 10 pick at plus 150. You mentioned Pete Carroll there. I remember when he was the head coach at the Seahawks, they always seem to have some very strange picks in the first 2 rounds. Not bad picks necessarily, but strange ones. That no one really expected. And he's the sort, I don't know how much of an influence he had on that. You'd hope that the head coach would have a say. That's that's a good point. Maybe he might go in that direction. One more bet from the draft, and this is an interesting market. Second quarterback drafted. We know who the first quarterback is going to be, all being well, until he doesn't fall down them stairs. The second quarterback selected, Shedeur Sanders. Is that the correct pronunciation? This is Deion Sanders' lad, isn't it? Deion Sanders' son. Yep. You're going to oppose him here in the market. You think Jackson Dart could be the second selected?
I'll tell you what, Dart is getting a lot of buzz, and I think it's for a variety of reasons. If this were 5 years ago, the Ole Miss, which is where he played, that offense, which is very, spread offense, very high school-y, that was dismissed a lot. But now the NFL game has been more conducive to players like that. And then having Lane Kiffin as his college coach, who understands NFL talent, things like that, I think he's pushing hard for Dart. He really likes him. So, and then Sanders is dropping, right? So the Giants, they're not going to take him at 3, in my opinion. And what's really fascinating about this is Sanders, sort of his, mentor, a guy he spent a lot of time with all throughout his younger years, was Tom Brady. And because of the relationship between Brady and his dad, Deion Sanders. Well, if Brady's in the front office of the Raiders at 6 and they pass on him, I think that's very telling to the rest of the league. Is, the Raiders could certainly groom a quarterback, even though they went and got Geno Smith. And I think Sanders is just going to drop, and he may drop. And if New Orleans is cool on him at 9, I just don't see Sanders. So getting plus 210 on Dart, who's trending in that direction, I think we're going to see a few mock drafts tomorrow when a lot of these experts post their final drafts. They're going to have Dart as the second quarterback. We sort of see the writing on the wall with this movement. So I think Dart at plus 210, I would have made Dart almost like a pick 'em right now with Sanders. I don't think he's going 3 to the Giants. I don't think he's going 9 to the Saints. We've seen quarterbacks fall in recent years, like we saw with the Kenny Pickett draft and Malik Willis a few years ago. Everyone thinks quarterbacks. It's not really the case anymore. There's more movement in the NFL with some free agency quarterbacks. We've seen guys switch teams like Sam Darnold and things like that. That's becoming more of a thing now. You don't have to just draft a guy or groom him. And if you don't have the right infrastructure, then that development can take time and maybe even derail a quarterback, like Darnold with the Jets, or even like Carolina had issues there. So it's a copycat league, Steve, as well. We just saw the Eagles win the Super Bowl, dominating the trenches, O-line and D-line. And therefore, I think teams are more inclined to spend their top picks in the trenches. So with Sanders maybe not top 10 anymore and things like that, I think Dart is a safer pick in the eyes of many. And you're getting plus 210 and something that it's more of a coin flip.
Yeah, I saw Sanders down as low as 34 on a mock draft when I was researching today. Apparently, even the Steelers don't like him. So very interesting play that Dart is the play here at plus 210 to be the second quarterback drafted, opposing Sanders in this market. Great stuff, Doug. Just before we go, I've got some soccer to discuss. And I'm taking a leaf out of your book here. Valencia against Espanyol. I'm going under. You've got me in the mood. I'm going under.
There we go.
Yeah. Under 2.25 goals in this game. This would actually probably be my best bet of the day as well. At minus 110 with Bet Rivers. This is a match where anyone who knows Valencia, the manager, former West Brom coach, Carlos Corberan, plays the game in one raid, really. He's really good tactically, keeps things tight. Both teams have actually been in very, very good form here. Been difficult to beat, I think is the best way of saying it. And when you're difficult to beat, often it means there's going to be less goals in soccer. I don't see this being a shootout. Both teams are on 38 points in the table. They're 7 points above the relegation zone. I think there's a very good chance of a tie here. 1 point each would go very, very well. And I actually watched the Espanyol game against Getafe at the weekend. I was on the over. 1.75. It's such a low goal line in soccer, and it still went under. Espanyol defended very, very well, ended 1-0. They have one of the lowest possession ranks in La Liga, and we know how this game is going to go. Neither team's really going to want the ball, which that's a concern if you want goals in the game. So I think under 2.25 is a really good play in this match. We've got Nantes against PSG. Someone else was asking about this game earlier. Now, it's a more tricky game. The bet I'm going to go with here is PSG on the team total to score over 2.5 goals at plus 112. This is not a massive play, but there's a big bit of team news here in that the Nantes goalkeeper, Anthony Lopez, is ruled out injured. And coming in is going to be a Swedish keeper called Patrick Karlgren. He actually came off the bench and played 57 minutes on Friday night. I didn't like what I saw from this keeper at all. He's the second string goalkeeper. He might even be third choice. Looked really dodgy on the crosses. I think he cost them the goal that lost them the game against Rennes. And I was looking through the Bet Rivers site, and you can sometimes get in the big games with Bet Rivers. For a PSG player to score from outside the penalty area or score with a header, because this keeper just seems to have a really poor command of area. And I could see PSG testing him with some long shots, giving it a good go. And, in terms of handicaps, overs, unders, I don't really want to get involved, but I do think PSG are capable of scoring 3 goals here. They're in the Champions League next week. I think the match at the weekend, they're more likely to rest players rather than this one. And there is a big golfing class. So I think PSG to score over 2.5 goals on their own at plus 112 is the best bet for this game. It's not a massive play, but do watch out for that Nantes goalkeeper, Patrick Karlgren, who may well be very, very nervous. If I was playing against him, Doug, I'd be shooting as much as I could. Test him out. Let's see what he's got. The nerves are going to be there for him, and I could see him having a clanger in some sort of way, as we say over here. Probably the most high-profile game. I've not got a bet in this one. It is the Barcelona match. We've got house special in this. Lamine Yamal to score in Barcelona to win at halftime and full-time, plus 230. If you do like that one, I think it's a difficult game to bet on. 99% of the money on the Barcelona, 96% of the money on the over-unders on the over. And we've had a big, nearly a $5,000 play on over 9.5 corners in this game as well. But I looked at this game. Mallorca, just one of them teams I don't like to get involved in. I'm sure you've got plenty of teams in the sports you cover, Doug, where you just don't really like getting involved in them, don't get a good read on them. So avoid. And they are good defensively, though, Mallorca. You'd quite like them, I think, Doug. Good defensive team, good under team in general, if you like your unders. Do we have odds for the next Pope? Is that correct?
Ooh.
Yes, producer Troy.
Wow.
Of course. This is incredible. Next Pope, Pietro Parolin is currently the favourite, plus 175. Luis Antonio Tagle is plus 200. What's the play there, guys, for the next Pope?
Not my wheelhouse.
Incredible. But look, if you're in the know, you're in the know. Someone will have perhaps some inside knowledge on this one. Steve from Lynn, do you have a lean on who the Pats might pick at number 4 in the draft, Doug? If you had to,
the Patriots,
yeah.
Well, they obviously there's a huge favorite to go number 4. That's who they have it for, right? Will Campbell is the short-armed LSU left tackle, I guess, but it's really weird the way they talk about him. It's he's a Patriot guy, like blue collar, clean. You know what you're getting. Worst case scenario, he can move to guard for the next decade. I don't love it. He's got short arms and short wingspan, but I mean, I think they're going to do that. Keep in mind, he was like plus 300 to be the first offensive lineman drafted, and now he's like minus 1,000. All signs point to that, but I will say, so the thought process is they have their franchise quarterback, right, with Drake May. So they want the left tackle with the blind side. But if you want to take pressure off a quarterback, get a great running back. So Genty would be a flyer if the odds are right. But I like the potential of Jalen Walker. I bet him earlier this week at 24-1 for the 4th pick. So I would say I would need around 20 to run. So he's 10-1 at Bet Rivers right now. I probably wouldn't bet it. But I do know the Patriots love him, think highly of him. So if they did not go offensive line, they would go Walker, is what my gut tells me. So that's where the draft really starts, Steve. We kind of know the top 3 picks, I think. And so it starts at 4. Everyone thinks that it's going to be Campbell, but I'd be careful assuming that. I wouldn't lay the minus 1,000. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, it's when you get to positions like 4 and 5, the old debate, do you take the best player available or do you fit your position of need? And that's where these general managers, have got to make these big decisions. I'll be interested to see you as a general manager, actually, Doug. I think you'd be a good one. Some of these franchises need a good general manager as well, don't they? Some of the picks down the years have been absolutely atrocious. Meninda Prihar, thanks very much for that. There was a question about the bookings game in Barcelona. It seems like if certain people do get carded in this game, they missed the Valladolid match. And Valladolid are so bad, they're beyond bad. By far the worst team in the league, so it wouldn't really matter anyone missing that one. So that's a great answer. Thank you very much for that. And thanks everyone who joined live today. Remember, you can watch the live streams of the 2 La Liga games, Valencia, Espanyol, Barcelona, Mallorca, Nantes, PSG, along with several other matches, Copa Libertadores, ATP Madrid. And remember, Betting Weekly Tennis Live follows in about just over an hour's time. We've got Rory Giovanni and Mitch Michaels on. Tomorrow on Betting Weekly Live, Dan Roebuck is in the host chair, and we've got our Spanish expert from Madrid, Rory Barlow. It's a midweek La Liga card, so we brought in Rory Barlow for the majority of games tomorrow. So do join those two. Doug, it was a pleasure as always and a lot of fun.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. It's always fun to chop it up. We've had some success, so let's keep it up with our unders especially, man. We got, as I always say with betting an under, as soon as the game starts, you're winning. So what's so bad about that?
Those 2 unders, they would be your best bets from this show? Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, from the NBA, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Check those out, guys. Thanks very much. Remember to gamble responsibly. I'll see you on Thursday on Betting Weekly Live. Join Dan tomorrow with Rory Barlow. Take care.